Cycling for me has never been about the bikes. They've only ever been the prerequisite tool. I do not see just a bike race, I see riders on heroic journeys and warriors doing battle. At one point, cycling was the most popular sport in Europe because newspapers told magnificent tales about epic races and crafted the great champions into legends. But with the advent of television, cycling lost some of its mystique, and that golden age of journalism and narration has perished. So now let us try to return some romance to the beautiful sport. Let us praise and give glory to phenomenal performances to be remembered for decades to come. Let us dwell on the moments that inspire and move us. Let us chronicle the rise and fall of heroes. Let us chart these life-changing journeys, these cycling odysseys. Alright, welcome back to another episode of the Cycling Odysseys. I'm your host, Patrick Santino. So another rewind stage today. This one from the Tour de France, of course, from 2020. We're making our way through it all. I haven't said it in a while. So if you don't know the format of the show, it usually goes with me doing a short introduction, then a basically reading of what was originally a blog post, and then I add a little bit more commentary at the end. If you want more information about what I'm really trying to do with this show beyond just the minute intro at the beginning there, go check out one of the early introduction episodes. It's just they'll be the things way at the bottom, just introduction. There's like 4 parts to it. Probably just the first stage will get the job done. But anyways, this was a slightly more boring stage of this tour, but this was the rider stage, because they go up the famous Mont Aigoual. I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry in advance. My French is non-existent, so when I go at these, climb names, and if I can't remember it from back then, I mean, it's I'm just plunging in, hold my breath, plunging in, hope I get something right. Sorry when it's wrong. But anyways, yeah, this was a famous climb. It was kind of a shame that the stage wasn't more exciting because lots of cycling fans really like that book. I also like that book, but I'll talk about that more after this. So let's jump in. The Rider on Mont Aigoual. Tour de France 2020, Stage 6, L'Île to Mont Aigoual, 191 kilometers. Lutsenko solos to stage victory from strong break. GC favorites all call truce. Alas, the stage today was not nearly as exciting as Tim Krabbe's novel, The Rider, which must be referenced today as the tour went up the most legendary climb in the book, Mont Aigoual. A strong breakaway was up the road with over a 6-minute lead at one point. It contained Greg Van Avermaet of CCC, the Olympic champion, Alexei Lutsenko of Astana, champion of Kazakhstan, Jesus Serrata of Cofidis, former Spanish champion, Nicolas Roche of Sunweb, former Irish champion and son of the 1987 Tour winner Stephen Roche, Edvald Boasson of NTT, former Norwegian champion, Nielsen Paulus of EF, young American and birthday boy, Daniel Oss of Bora Hansgrohe, Peter Sagan's Loyal Gregario, and Remy Cavagna of Deceuninck Quickstep, the last-minute replacement for Zdeněk Stybar in the Tour. A fine tally, an experienced and threatening bunch. At the bottom of the finale, as the riders faced the final 3 climbs, the Col des Marizes, the Col de la Suite, and Mont Aigoual itself, that appeared like steps of a staircase with only minuscule descents in between, the breakaway had only a 3:40 gap ahead of the peloton. Ineos drilled away on the front with the help of Mitchelton Scott for their man Adam Yates, who was now in the Maillot Jaune. But it seemed as if our experienced breakaway had been saving something for the finale. The big men were the first to walk the plank, Oss and Eddie Boss, that is Boasson. But the effort of all was admirable. The gap was not yet tumbling down in the peloton's favor. At one point it was down to 2:50 from the break to peloton, until Nielsen Paulus, the American, attacked. Lutsenko and Van Avermaet covered well, but Harada and Cavagna struggled, and Roche cracked completely. But quickly came a powerful attack from Lutsenko. Paulus held his wheel for a little while, but then fell off the pace and cracked as well. Only Jesus Serrata behind had some sort of second wind to grind past all the other cracked riders. But Alexei Lutsenko looked strong as granite. Surely, the bobbing and agonizing Harada would not come back to him, and he did not. And neither did the peloton. Lutsenko maintained a 3-minute and 20-second gap over them all. In the peloton behind, Mikel Nieve of Mitchelton Scott came to help Ineos with the pacemaking duties. And I, dear readers, wonder if they were setting the pace so that Jumbo-Visma would not set something relentless in their stead. With the last few kilometers to go, 4 riders were still up the road. Perhaps Nieve and Mitchelton Scott did not want to bring any of them back so that they would eat up the time bonuses for first, second, and third places on the stage, allowing Adam an easier shot to stay in the jersey if he finished with the leaders. And it became clear no real or significant action would be coming from this peloton full of every single GC favorite besides maybe a sprinter for minor time bonuses in the last kilometer. Jumbo-Visma were not even assembled. Just each rider chilling, mixed in the peloton. Remember, they are coming off back-to-back stage wins. Alaphilippe, our musketeer, had a little bit of a dig in the last kilometer to get 1 second of separation from the bunch, which may prove important later, but it came off as only formality to the viewers. It was a shame to waste such a legendary climb that is so dear to so many cyclists' hearts. Not only was the racing not exciting, I did not see anyone do an honorary placing of the bidon in their back pocket in order to make the bike as light as possible. And surely no one's 22 was as clean as a whistle. For nowadays, the rider's lightest gears are as big as a 28, 30, even 32. Again, I say alas, such an anticlimactic day did not pay the proper tribute to such a revered book. At least there was a rider today, though. Let us call him the rider today for the sake of legacy. The rider of Mont Aigoual today was Alexei Lutsenko, the champion of Kazakhstan, newest stage winner of the Tour de France. His legs were pistons, his torso a chiseled piece of marble, rock solid. He is no skinny climber, though obviously today he once again proved he can climb. A handy skill for a classics man to have. Which classic is he most suited for? I do not rightly know, honestly. He has had good showings across the board. Perhaps you, dear readers, missed this race, but I remember on the first stage of the 2016 3 Days of Depana, he was involved in probably the funniest moment I have ever seen in cycling. When he escaped on the cobbles, probably over the Meer van Gerensberg itself, with teammate Louis Westra, then of Astana, and the formidable Alexander Kristoff, then of Katusha. Westra was in prime position to take a great lead for the GC if the three worked together to maintain or extend their gap over the peloton. And Kristoff, the rival in the group, with by far the best sprint, was actually willing to work with them so that he would have an easy sprint for the stage. But it was Lutsenko who caused the dysfunction, refusing to do any real turns. Everyone, including the commentators, wondered what he was doing. But finally the commentators realized, I think Lutsenko thinks he can take Kristoff in the sprint here, if he saves his energy and doesn't work. Kristoff was not on his best form at the time. If memory serves, he even had a fever. But this was still a fairly ridiculous proposition. It got to the point where Westra, Lutsenko's own teammate, vocally and animatedly, for all the viewers to see, shouted at Lutsenko to get on the front and do a turn to make the three stay away and finish with a large gap. But Lutsenko continued to sit in, and it came down to the sprint Lutsenko wanted, and Kristoff firmly and easily dusted him. In no way, shape, or form was it even close. Kristoff absolutely wiped the floor with him, and Astana looked to have quite an egg in their face for screwing that one up so bad, because Westra could have had a bigger lead. But I also remember the courage and audacity and heroics of Lutsenko on that wild Tirreno Adriatico stage last year. Much like today, Lutsenko had gone solo from a strong break on a hilly stage with a final descent and flat finish into Fossombroni. He proceeded to crash twice on the descent close towards the finish. His breakaway lead evaporated just a handful of kilometers from the finish. After the second crash, he was caught by Primož Roglič of Jumbo-Visma, Adam Yates, and Jakob Fuglsang of Astana. Still, he hung in with the group, and despite the fatigue of the break, the nerves and injuries from the crashes, he produced a fine sprint to take stage honors. And now look at him today, the finest win of his career, a stage of the Tour de France. Perhaps for us viewers, it was not the most glamorous or exciting, but it was hard-fought and well-deserved nonetheless. Congratulations to you, Alexei. Today, you are the champion. Today, you have made Astana and your country proud. Crossing the line, legs fatigued, sweat glistening in the evening sun. It is a memory you will never forget. Alexei Lutsenko, today, you were the rider on the Tour de France. All right, so that was the stage. based off the rider. Very cool book. Unfortunately, I didn't have it on me at the time, or else I totally would have just skimmed through it and found about 10 references that I could throw into this thing, and it would have seemed like I read the book just yesterday. But I didn't have it. So I couldn't do that. I read it like 3 years ago. The only ones I could really remember off the top of my head that totally stuck with me was the beat on reference, where for some reason if you put it up in your pocket that's supposedly lighter. I think that stuck with me because I was actually wondering, it's like, wait, can this be true? Let me figure out if this could be true somehow. And TBD. then the other one that I remembered was his 22 is clean as a whistle. So I know how to ride a bike, and I ride bikes often, and I know how to race, and I know all about pro racing and everything. But damn, I'm pretty bad with bike parts. And so I assume that was the one hard thing about that book, right? It's from the 70s, and so 70s racing, 70s bicycles were fairly different, actually. So, I mean, 22, I assume that was the biggest ring on their cassette in the back, on the back wheel. And I mean, that's unheard of. Like, maybe I'm just getting this wrong, but I mean, geez. I mean, you, at the minimum, you absolutely have a 26. You probably have a 28. There's a good chance you can have a 30, and you can definitely even put on a 32, maybe even a 34 on a road bike nowadays. I mean, so, nobody's 22 is as clean as a whistle anymore. They also have, I know this for sure, they figured it out basically, I think it was probably in the mid 2000s, they realized now, the hardos back in the day, especially when EPO was absolutely rife everywhere in the 90s, if you need a really small gear, then maybe you just shouldn't have been a professional cyclist. But then they figured out, well, actually, no, it's just more efficient to ride up at smaller gears. If that makes me look like a wuss, so be it when I beat your butts, So, and that's what happened there. But yeah, this was Lutsenko's stage. Been watching him for a while. Kazakhstan, Astana, that's the kind of guy. He's got to be their pride and joy, even though he's not going to, I mean, he's too big to ever be like a Grand Tour rider. You can't ride GC, but I mean, he's pretty damn versatile too. Not as successful as some of the others. Obviously, yesterday's or stage 5's was Wout van Aert. Not Wout's already surpassed him. But anyways, I mean, he is pretty. He can do the cobbles, and he can do the Ardennes, and he can do Grand Tour stages like this. I forgot to mention he had a pretty damn good Vuelta stage win too. That was pretty impressive. I forgot when I wrote it at the time, but I mean that story where he tried to outsprint Kristoff. Oh, it still cracks me up. Like I was laughing at it, remembering as I was listening to the recording, so that I can do this a little bit at the end. But yeah, that was a pretty funny moment. He's come a long way since then, because I mean he just owned the stage. I mean, it was 4 months ago or something, but I still remember it. I mean, he was just, that's part of the reason it was boring. It's because he was just so rock solid. I mean, he just locked it up, stamped his authority on that stage, and it was awesome. But yeah, with that, follow me on Twitter, Cycling Odysseys, and Patrick Santino. If you just want to read the blog post because you don't want to hear the parts where it's like, oh, if I had read this, I would have thrown in 10 references, but I hadn't read it at the time, or recently because I had read it like 3 years ago. If that ruins these, you can just read the blog posts. They're at cyclingodysseys.com. And then you can send me an email, cyclingodysseys@gmail.com. Subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star review, and I'll read it out eventually. I'm not going to do it on the rewind ones, but yeah, any team previews or the soon to be when I start covering like the actual current races, I'll start reading them out. And yeah, do that. If you make it really fun and good, it'll be worth a prize, and it'll probably be an IOU for early on, but maybe I'll give you a prize at some point if I have something worthy to give, But yeah, I don't know. With that, everybody enjoy the day. Some more team previews coming up. I might actually just start going on a tear of team previews because I got them banked up now. So maybe we'll just do more than just 2 for the next slate here. All right, but yeah, thanks for listening, everybody, and vive le cyclisme.